Welcome to Taking Care of Business on News Talk 1180 KERN for the best in Saturday talk radio at 1 o'clock and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock Saturday, and for the best in Wednesday talk radio on 1410 KERI, the Christian station. We are now on 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and also 3 times a week on the internet nationwide through KNOOK Media. Plus, you can catch any of our shows for the last 4 years, and I can't believe it's been 4 years, on the internet at the Clay and Marty Show. My partner Clay Kerner is at a conference today. I'm Marty Pay, and our producer is Greg Held. We had a great show last week with 2 assembly candidates, Rob McCoy in the 44th District and Pedro Rios in the 32nd. But we've got a great show lined up today. In the second half, we have an old friend of mine, Brian Johnson, who's the regional director for the National Right to Life. But right now, by phone, we are honored to have the former senator from the great state of New Hampshire, Bob Smith. Senator Smith, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Well, thanks for having me, Marty. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Well, we have a mutual friend who told me about you, Rob West, who is real involved in the POW MIA issue.
Yeah, great man, great patriot, absolutely.
Yeah, he really is. When I got out of the Marines a lot longer ago than I'd like to admit, I went to work for the POW organization. But I understand just a little bit on your background. I understand your father passed away in World War II.
Yes, he did. He survived all of he was a naval aviator, Annapolis grad, and he survived all of the combat, air combat situations. And right at the end of the war, he was sent back home in March of 1945 and was assigned to Oceana. And he was the co-pilot. They were test flying an aircraft that the Army had kind of cast off, and the Navy wanted to use it, and it malfunctioned, and that was that. So it was kind of rough. It was 2 days before my 4th birthday.
Oh, sheesh. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. And then
well, it was rough on my mom because he survived the war, and then came back home. They're looking forward to starting their life together. There were 2 kids, myself and my brother. But you know what? There were a lot of families who went through the same thing. So
you bet. At that same time,
part of the price you pay for freedom, I guess. That's the way we have to look at it.
And then you served in Vietnam.
I did. So did my brother. We both served. My brother was in Long Binh for a while, and I believe he was there in '67 and '68. I got back. I knew as soon as I got back, I was out in the Gulf of Tonkin on a warship, and then when I got back, I knew Sugar got home, and he left.
Wow.
So it was kind of rough on my mother. She crying when I left, crying when he left, and it was.
Yeah.
But it's as I said, it's we were always taught that to be patriots, to do our duty and our service, and we never had any thoughts of ever shirking that responsibility.
Sure. Now, I want to just preface this interview with something. I am definitely supporting this gentleman, so I just want that on the record right away. Now, you were the senator in New Hampshire twice, and you're running for an office that you had a couple years ago.
Yeah, more than a couple, actually. I left office in 2003 and have been out of office since, but very concerned about the direction that our country is headed, obviously, as I'm sure most of your listeners are. And I just decided that there's really no age limit on patriotism, and if you feel you can contribute, then you should come back, and that's my feeling. I think that there's a lot that I can do. We need leadership desperately to get at some of these major problems, which we can go through ad nauseum, I guess. I mean, certainly the illegal alien situation is a real mess in this country right now. We have no borders at all. I mean, we're flying people in over the borders as well as letting them in over the border. So that, and then Obamacare, and you go on down there, and NSA spying and harassing people because of their political persuasion, and on, Common Core with the Department of Education mingling in the affairs of local school boards. So it's a multitude of problems, and we've got to get a handle on it before it's too late. And I think the worst one right now is the illegal alien situation, because of the fact that people are just coming in here with, we don't know who they are, where they came from, what diseases do they bring? Are they terrorists? Are they people that broke out of jail? Or who are they? I mean, we don't have a clue, and they're just being dispersed around the country.
Yeah, that's the insane thing. We're having a conversation with former Senator of the great state of New Hampshire, Bob Smith. So, Senator Smith, you're, and I agree with you on immigration. You know, it's funny. I'm originally from Toronto, which is not too far from New Hampshire, and I remember how tough it was. My stepfather was half Czech and half German, and after the war, he had to come to Canada or Colombia to become a citizen before he could come to California, which is ultimately what he wanted to do. So, you know, the process took him about 12 years to do, where now people are just, like you say, streaming across the border, you know, unchecked, which is, you know, ridiculous. But unfortunately, that's what we're faced with.
Yeah, it really is bad. And, you know, once you break that border down, then you've lost all control. And, you know, when you've got people like ISIS out there saying that they're going to kill us and raise their flag over the White House, I know when I was, you know it's bad, and I know when I was in office 12 years ago, we had intelligence about cells of terrorists in this country, and I haven't seen any of that intelligence in the last 12 years. But it's a little scary to think about who might be coming in here, and the fact that we're not screening people and letting them in illegally is just beyond belief to me.
Well, you know, the administration's made two statements in the last week that just scare the you-know-what out of me. One is, you know, we have no strategy for Syria. And the second one was Wednesday morning, this morning. He wants to manage ISIS. How do you manage that kind of threat? I mean, what kind of leadership is this?
Well, I don't think, to be honest with you, the leadership that we have now in our government really understand the history of this. I think if they understood the history of it, or maybe they do understand it and don't want to deal with it, but, you know, we all know that, we all know, but certainly when Muhammad died in 632 A.D., we've had, for centuries, the Sunnis and the Shias have been trying to determine who the next Muhammad was going to be, so to speak. So you have cultural, religious, tribal warfare that's been going on all these centuries in that region of the country. And, you know, first we were trying to get rid of Assad, and we were with ISIS, and now we're against ISIS. I mean, obviously you should be against ISIS, but, you know, they're murderers. But the point is, we can't win a war there. I mean, I don't want to see more situations like we saw in Afghanistan with the lone survivor, where people are surrounded by terrorists and Al-Qaeda with no help. Rules of engagement are such that they get in these god-awful situations, traps, or can't shoot, they're shot at, and then they wind up, unfortunately, many times, being killed. I mean, this is a war, an engagement, that if we're on the ground there, boots on the ground, we should not be involved in. Now, having said that, when we now talk about ISIS or anybody else, any of these terrorist organizations or groups who behead our citizens or do anything, for that matter, against our citizens or threaten us or our assets somewhere, our embassies, any of our resources around the world, we have every right to act to protect and defend ourselves, which I support 100% with a full force. I mean, we may have to get to the point where we say, okay, one American dies, 25,000 of them die. I mean, we're going to do what we have to do to stop this, but it does not mean that we go on the ground and try to control where ISIS is, where ISIS isn't, and get on the ground in Iraq or Syria or wherever they may be operating. It's just mind-boggling to me that this president would blunder us into that situation and see Americans, you know, get great, brave American soldiers, especially the highly trained SEALs and others, to be in that situation. We have drones, we have military aircraft. You know, we can take out a group of them pretty much any time we want to. And if they want a quid pro quo, one of them kills us, one of us dies, 25,000 of them that's a pretty good quid pro quo as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and I think if we did that, we could break their will, and I think that's the key to this because, the numbers I hear, I had Dr. Waleed Ferris on the other day, and we were talking about the numbers, and we were talking about the history, and when you look at this, you're only looking at about 15 to 20,000 people in the first place. So,
it may be a little more than that. I mean, it depends on what you read. I mean, they're talking, I think it started out in a 4,000 or 5,000, and the estimates now gone as high as 100,000 of ISIS in both Syria and Iraq, but you never know. I mean, how do you count them? I mean, I don't. You could be right. We just don't know. But what we do know is that they are a terrorist organization, and look, we have to understand what their objective is here.
Sure.
Their objective is to kill us. That's what they want to do.
Exactly.
And they threaten to do it, and they threaten us every day. We've now had several of our leaders, or former leaders, such as Chuck Hagel, Ollie North, several of them now have said that, look, we're going to get a hit, and we're going to get a hit soon. And we have to understand this is a serious threat. And it's boggling to me, it's just mind-boggling to think that, knowing this, that we would allow our borders to be this open, this porous, and not interrupt the flow of these people that are coming in here and not knowing who they are. They're breaking every immigration law in America, and the president is encouraging it by not sending them back home.
I totally agree.
They come because they're not stopped. Mm-hmm. That's why they come.
When we come back from the break, let's talk a little bit about the race that you're in. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio News Talk 1180.